Hi, this is Steve Mogg, Director of Residential Communities at Leading Age. I'd like to mention a hearing that was held on November 2nd at the Senate Special Committee on Aging entitled Ensuring Quality and Oversight in Assisted Living. This was a hearing that was requested by Senator Nelson from Florida as a result of a series of articles and incidents in Florida, primarily in the Miami area, where a number of residents were harmed. Some were even killed because of what was alleged to be poor care and inadequate oversight of residents in some assisted living communities, mostly smaller communities that focused on mental health, although not all the victims of this terrible occurrences were mental health residents. You might recall last spring that the Senate committee had a roundtable on assisted living, so this is unusual for the committee to have two hearings on assisted living in one calendar year. Testifying at the hearing were Barbara Edwards, the Director of Disabled and Elderly Health Programs at CMS, Martha Rorty from the National Association of States United for Aging and Disabilities, Larry Polivka, the Scholar in Residence at the Claude Pepper Institute in Florida, Alfredo Neves, whose mother was one of the victims in the incidents in Miami area, myself, and Robert Jenkins from the Director of the Greenhouse Project. My testimony in the hearing focused on a couple of things. We were looking at issues related to quality of care and oversight. One of the calls and a number of the people that testified were suggesting that perhaps it was time to look at federal regulatory oversight or some kind of federal standards for assisted living. My testimony featured the fact that we have a number of avenues for assisted living providers to improve care and to maintain high quality of care. Our Leading Age's Quality First was one of the programs I mentioned. It, as you all recognize, is a program that helps our members drive to excellence in care and excellence in performance and assure public trust in what care and services are being provided. There are other associations that provide services similar, such as National Center on Assisted Living and the Assisted Living Federation of America, and these are all available to consumers and to state regulators and as well to the individual assisted living providers. My testimony focused on the fact that those kind of resources are what we should be striving to require assisted living providers to meet rather than look to additional regulatory efforts. Frankly, most of us in the industry and most of us that have had experience in regulatory oversight have come to the belief that more regulation, and certainly federal regulation, is not what's going to improve quality of care. One of the states that looks at a graduated regulatory scheme was Wisconsin, and it was one that we pointed out as having a strong regulatory scheme without being overbearing. We think that the kinds of resources that are available are what should be emphasized by states. We shouldn't be adding additional regulatory burdens for assisted living providers, and certainly shouldn't be looking at federal regulation of assisted living. One of the other aspects I testified to is consumer disclosure. That is a major concern and a major issue. As we all know, assisted living is a fairly new player in the long-term care support and services, and many people don't understand what assisted living is and often confuse it with nursing homes. There are a number of programs available on the commercial market. SNAP for Seniors is one example that can help assisted living consumers determine what assisted living is. The Consumer Consortium for Assisted Living also has a fantastic website with a tremendous amount of information, but we think this is an area where federal agencies, state agencies, and the provider communities can work together to try and improve the consumer awareness of what assisted living is, what services are available, and what services are not available in assisted living. One of those examples is the ongoing project by the Agency for Research and Healthcare Quality and SEAL, the Center for Excellence Assisted Living, to look at a consumer disclosure tool to be made available in a year or so after it undergoes field testing that will help consumers determine what one assisted living provider services compared to another assisted living provider services. This is the kind of example that we mentioned in the testimony that would be of great use in the future and something we are all striving for. In my written testimony, I also pointed out that one of the concerns that we have with result of the Miami is the fact that many of these assisted living communities had mixed populations, as I mentioned earlier, serving mental health. One of the issues in the Medicaid waiver proposal that's under review at CMS currently is to allow the states to combine waivers into one program, mixing both mental illness, developmental disability, and senior care into one waiver. While we support flexibility in waivers, this does raise the concerns of having competition among groups that are looking for waiver money, and also potentially having one consumer subset or one faction of the waiver being unable to provide the care, or to, as in the case of Florida, having providers having combined waivers with a number of residents that are a mixed population. That led to the problems in Florida, and something we want to try and avoid. Where we're going to go from here is anybody's guess. Clearly, as I mentioned earlier, having the hearing, second hearing in one calendar year on assisted living is unusual, and certainly means that this committee and others in Washington, D.C. are looking at assisted living and trying to determine what role the federal government may or may not play in assisted living. We will continue to be monitoring this, and will continue to provide information to you all. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at Leading Age. Thank you.